All right, let's talk about funnels for the lead gen space. So, luckily for you, if you're working with lead gen, it is one of the typically easiest industries or niche vertical, whatever you want to call it, to work with. And that comes down a lot of the times to the funnels. They're usually plug and play funnels, meaning what will work for one of your realtor clients will typically work for the other realtor client or the other accounting client, et cetera, et cetera. And they're typically fairly simple to set up and troubleshoot and get up and running. So that's the good news for you. But there are different types of funnels within the space. And what I want to share with you today is specifically two of those, as well as what we call a minimum viable funnel. So we're going to be looking at three of the most popular approaches to lead gen based funnels. Now, what's really important for you to know, and also when we go into prepping the account, this is something that we discuss in there. But it is very important when you're working within this space to understand what the lifetime value of their customer is. For example, a lawyer, the initial cost, the initial value of the customer may only be, say, $2,000, $5,000, but perhaps the lifetime value of a customer is more around that $15,000 mark. And so a lawyer is actually going to be very happy to pay or spend, up to $500 or even $2,000 to acquire a customer because of that lifetime value. And they should be, right? Otherwise, it doesn't make sense that they wouldn't be. They should be happy to spend, the initial cost that the customer even spends on acquiring that customer because of that lifetime value if they have that. So it's really important for you as a Facebook marketer to understand what that lifetime value is, because oftentimes you need to sort of set the right expectations. A lot of lead gen based clients are used to dealing with referral based traffic and building their businesses off referrals, and which has very high conversion rates, doesn't cost them anything. So they're not used to, a lot of them, spending money to acquire leads, and then they're also not used to a lower close rate because it's a cold audience now, so it responds differently. And so it's important for you to set the right expectations, and in order to do that, you really need to also understand what the lifetime value is. And once you get that, then you can really know what is an acceptable cost per lead. Don't get stuck in the trap of trying to get the cheapest leads for your client, right? I see this all the time online where Facebook marketers are boasting or bragging about $5 leads that they're getting for gyms or whatever it might be. That's great, but it doesn't mean that those are actually converting into customers. So cheap leads do not always mean customers. Okay, it's really important to know that, and that's why we're also going to set up offline event tracking so we can actually track this specifically. But if you are getting $5 leads and your client is not converting any of them, you're better off actually paying $100 a lead, but it's a higher quality lead and your customer converts those. So just be very aware of that and set the right expectations around that. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the funnels. So typically, this is what you're going to see happen in the lead gen space. So you have a direct response ad going to a cold audience. So usually it's promoting a hook or an offer. And some examples of that typically include things like gamification. For example, calculate how much is your home worth, or calculate how much could you save off taxes this year. It also includes things like freebies or discounts. And it can also be a lead magnet in the sense of a value-based piece of content, like the 5 things you need to consider before you get a breast augmentation or whatever that might be, right? So those are what we call hooks. And if you have a hook to work with, typically this funnel will work with lead gen. It's going to be a fairly short funnel. You basically go out to the cold audience with that hook, that offer, send them to the offer page, and then retarget anyone that didn't opt in to that offer. And usually that retargeting ad is a messenger ad. So you're not sending them right back to the same offer page. you're getting them to take some different form of action, and that's usually a messenger ad here. So this is the typical funnel. It's fairly short, pretty simple, pretty easy to get up and going. Now, this can also work really well if you have a great product. So even if you don't have a hook or an offer, if it's a type of product that is in a demand, so for example, cool sculpting is one of those kind of services these days that is really hot. It kind of sells itself in a way. So even without a hook, you could make this kind of funnel work for that type of service. If that doesn't work, then typically what happens is you would expand that funnel out and warm up your top of funnel audience with a video or some kind of piece of content, and then retarget them with the direct response. So if we're using the example of cool sculpting, for example, maybe perhaps top of funnel, you're having a video about what it is, why it's, the bee's knees, etc., and then you retarget that audience that viewed that video with your offer or with the call to action, the direct response. Now, in the lead gen space, what we do, similar to e-com, similar to if you're working with online courses or coaches, we have what we call a minimum viable funnel. So if we look back at this funnel here, even though it's pretty simple, you have to build a landing page here, right? You have to build a landing page, and then a pop-up, and then a confirmation page. It has to be synced in with your email CRM, and you're using Zapier probably, and if you're doing calls, that needs to be synced in as well. And then again here, same thing. However, what we want to do is before we even build any funnels for our clients, unless we know that that funnel already works, meaning we've already tested it on another client, what we actually want to do is we want to roll out what we call a minimum viable funnel. And this is using, in the lead gen space, it's using lead ads. So we're going to use lead ads because they're just really easy to get up and running. You don't need to build landing pages when you're creating a lead ad. You simply need a privacy policy, and then you just need to integrate it into their CRM system. Usually that's done using Zapier. So it's a lot easier to build and set up than a full funnel. Why do we do this? Because of the time, right? There's no point for you to build a whole funnel and then to find out that the offer or the hook or it's just not going to work, right? And also landing pages add a whole nother variable into the equation, where a lot of landing pages are just designed really poorly, and so they don't convert, and then it can be hard to know, like, why isn't this working, right? So when we're using a lead ad, what we're actually doing is we're validating our offer and our hooks to the audience. And then once we do that, we can actually build out the funnel. Once we've validated it, we can choose to build out a landing pages. Now, in some cases, what you'll actually notice, and this is why we always start with the minimum viable funnel, is that the lead ads will just work. Your customer will actually convert the lead ad, the leads that come through the lead ad, and it won't be a problem. And you don't even need to build out a full landing page funnel. Now, I would recommend you still do, and you split test between the two to see which one's actually getting better results or better clients. But in a lot of cases, some clients will be able to convert leads from lead ads. And so this is also why we start off with what we call the minimum viable funnel, okay? So this is kind of an overview around the funnels that we're going to be building inside of this program in the framework. We're going to start every campaign for a customer, unless we've already used that funnel on another client, we know it works. We're going to start every campaign for new lead gen clients using what we call the minimum viable funnel. We're going to be rapid fire testing our offer and our hook. And then once we validate that, we will either continue and scale that, or we'll basically activate our funnel by building out the landing page sequence. And then we test our creative in our second round of rapid fire, so we get even cheaper, better results for what we're doing, okay? So moving on, I'll see you guys in the next training.